We're rolling on cam A. We're rolling on cam B. All set.
Okay, lovely. Well, hello.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
Good, and you?
First, sorry.
Oh,
Could you
sure.
close the door? Yeah. And then you can just restart a little intro.
So, hello.
Hi.
My name is Gabby.
Hi, Gabby.
Would you mind telling us your name and what you do at TE?
My name is Gwendolyn Awoyade, and I'm the financial career coach here at TE.
That's amazing. So, I'm like a little familiar with your work. I remember I sat in at orientation and you spoke about what you do at TE, like more specifically, and your past career. So I was wondering if you would mind telling us about your career before you came to TE, because I know it's quite extensive. So.
Okay. My career is basically in finance. I've worked at Pepsi-Cola in the finance department for 15 years. They relocated the finance department to North Carolina. At that time, I wasn't able to move there because I had small children. So I took a settlement, and then I started working for a law firm where I was accounting manager. I had a staff of 25 people. We did accounts receivables, accounts payables, all functions of accounting. At that time, they decided to downsize upper management. So we were downsized. And at that point, it was like when you turn 50, everything started going down. So anyway, I started looking for another job. Well, okay, we can back up. I went to Ohio University. My major was elementary education. I did not like teaching. I taught for a year. My parents told me, well, you're going to do something because all this money we wasted. You're going to find something else to do. So I said, well, okay. And I hated math. I didn't like math. So I took a bookkeeping class, and I started to like it. So and I did more and more. So I went to Cleveland State. I took a couple accounting classes. I went to Sawyer Business College and got I received a accounting certificate. So from that point on, started liking accounting. So that's when I started working at Pepsi, and then I went to Javich Block and Rathbone. After I left Javich Block and Rathbone, I started working with a company in Beechwood called Trimco. At that point, they made me a corporate, sort of like a corporate accountant. And at that point, what I was doing was we had companies in over 50 states. So I was doing the taxes, making sure the taxes were done on time, that type of thing. It was a very interesting job. During that position, I met a man and fell in love, thought I was in love. And I was also at that time working for a credit union, for a church credit union, a small church credit union. And I didn't want to do them both, but my pastor kept saying, oh, we need you. We really need your knowledge here. You got the collection knowledge. You know the accounting. I need your help. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So it got overwhelming. So at that time, I told my boyfriend, at that time we weren't married, I said, well, listen, you can't seem to keep a job. Why don't you, let me teach you about finance and accounting. So he said, oh, great, yeah, I'll do that. I love that. That's when I need to learn how to do that. So I taught him everything that I knew so he could run the credit union and I could do my full-time job. And that would give us a little extra income for him. Well, needless to say, long story short, I find out that he was embezzling money from the credit union. Well, assigning my names to checks. And when it finally came down, and I'm thinking, no, you actually did what? It's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. They're telling, that's not the truth. No, why would I ever do that? Oh, no. You're going to believe them over me, And I'm thinking, what do I do? Being older and never, ever being in trouble before. I never even had a speeding ticket. So I grew up I was the only child. My father was a surgeon. My mom was a postal worker. So I didn't want for anything, basically. So I told him, I said, well, I don't know what's going on. He said, oh, no. So anyway, we get an attorney. And the attorney shows all this stuff that was being taken from the credit union, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, where did this come from? And he had all different addresses and everything. And I'm telling the attorney, this is not me. This is not me. And the attorney is like, I know it's not. He said, it tells right here, your signatures are different. My dumb behind, all of a sudden, I didn't realize why he wanted to get married. Well, we need to get married because I want my kids to know that we're officially married and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, we don't need to get married. Oh, yeah, I want to get married. Well, if we're not going to get married, I'm just going to leave. And I should have said bye at that point, but I didn't. I fell for it, and we got married, not knowing that I would not be able to testify against him during the trial or whatever it was. So we get married, and then all the stuff comes down on me, basically. And he tells me, oh, you'll never have to worry about it. And I'm going to tell the judge the truth. I'm telling the truth. You had nothing to do with it. You don't even have to worry about it. Don't even worry about it. So I'm thinking, okay, this is fine. My mom was elderly. I was taking care of my mom. I had moved her in with us. Not to this day has he ever said it was his fault. So not knowing anything about the justice system, not knowing how to fight, I ended up taking a plea, which I should have never done. But the prosecutor had scared me so bad that if I didn't take a plea, I could have done like 10 to 15 years. And I'm thinking, Lord, I can't do 10, 15 years. I don't even know anything about prison. What am I going to do? So then they say, okay, well, you can take this plea and you get... The first plea was they gave me 12 months, I think. And I was determined because I knew I hadn't done anything, so I wouldn't sign it. So after it kept going on, and they kept threatening me and coming up with more and more things, I finally said, okay, this is getting too much. This is too much. My attorney, I thought, was working for me, but he actually wasn't. In the long run, I ended up getting sentenced for 64 months. He has 72 because now that I find out, he had a previous embezzlement charge against him when he was in California. I ended up only doing 18 months due to COVID. I did home confinement. At that time, I came home from home confinement, and I was devastated because I had never in my life ever had anything on my background before. Like I said, I never had a speeding ticket, so I didn't know what to do. So I did a lot of praying, and I was trying to search and see why did this have to happen to me. And now that I realize it's because I love to help people, and I want to help people. And I think I can help more people by being where I came from, even from the beginning, from my background from the beginning, and then going to prison, doing some time in prison, and then coming out and getting back on my feet. While I was in there, I almost lost my house. He had somebody staying there in the house. They ripped me off all my furniture, my cars, and everything. So when I got out, my house note was almost a year behind. So I had to finagle and figure out ways that I could save my house. Everybody was against me. Oh, let the house go. You don't need it. You can come stay with me. You can do this and that. But I've never been that type of person. I've always been very independent. So I said, no, I'm determined to the end if it take every little penny I have. So luckily I was able to save my house. My nephew was living with me at the time. He was helping me out with the rent because once you first come out, you don't have any finances. You try to go to the bank to get a bank account. Certain banks run certain reports, which like Nexus, Lexus, or whichever, and it tells you've been in prison. So they don't want to have anything to do with you, especially with the crime with it being a credit union. So I was determined. I said, I'm going to have to help people. So I went through this program. I was a little leery at first. I was like, well, can't nobody tell me basically how to write a resume or interview or anything. I already know this. But I went through the program and I learned a lot from the program. And I guess they saw, my background and saw my worth. So I did a 4-week work experience here. And at that time, I became a AmeriCorps employee. And I worked at AmeriCorps. I did AmeriCorps for a year. And at that time they opened up the Financial Opportunity Center and offered me the position. Basically, when I first started, I went out, my goal was to find banks that would service our participants. Because you don't realize once you've been incarcerated or you have that felony behind you, there's hardly anything that you can do. Okay, even simple things as open up a bank account. Reason being, if you're sent to prison, you have a bank account already, you're going to incur charges. You're not able to pay those. So it's going to go in the check systems. So when you come home to open up a bank account, the first thing they're going to do is look at check systems and see, oh, you owe money back from so-and-so, so-and-so. We can't open up an account for you unless you pay this. Well, where are you going to get the money to pay it from? Because you don't have a job. You don't have any resources. Most people aren't fortunate enough to have anything once they come home. They come home with nothing. So I went out and I searched before the program. When they first told me what I'll be doing, I went out. I went to several credit unions. I went to several banks and spoke to the managers and asked them, what can you do for our participants? What can you do for me personally as far as opening up accounts? We have people that are in check systems, but we want to help them get out of check systems. We have people that have felonies that are not allowed to open up banks. So I came up with 4 different banks that will allow us, our participants, to open up accounts without even having any without even going back on checking LexisNexis or check systems. So that gives them a second chance as a bank at opening up a bank account. I did several credit unions. I mean, it must have taken me a couple months to go to different organizations. A couple of them I just walked out on because they were like, no, oh no, we don't want to have anything to do with that. No. And I just, I kept a note of them, and when anybody asks me about them now, I'm just honest. Don't go there, because they're not going to service you because of your background. So basically now what I do here towards employment, I run the Financial Opportunity Center, which we work with the participants on building their credit. So a lot of times once you come out, you don't know what your credit score is. A lot of times I've experienced a lot of people, parents have used their credit, thinking, oh, by the time they come out, they won't even know anything about it, But they don't realize if you don't pay it, that makes their credit bad. So what I do is I sit down with the participants, I go over their credit report, we figure out what's good, what's not. If they were incarcerated and it's not their items, we dispute them. I teach them. Basically, I'm supposed to tell them, this is what I need you to do. But I'm so into helping people, I do it for them. Okay? If they seem that they can do it and it seems like they understand, then I let them do it. But most of the time, I do everything for them. Also, if they need a bank account, I offer them the bank accounts that we have open. If none of those work for them, I go out and make other suggestions for them.
So first of all, thank you so much for sharing some of that story. The situation that you told us about sounds incredibly stressful. And I think that it's really amazing that inspired you to help others. So I do have a few questions. First, when you were originally going through the process, like after you had been released and you were trying to rebuild everything and deal with your housing and stuff, what resources were available to you? How did you figure out what steps to take on your own?
I did a lot of research. I called my mortgage company and I basically cried to them on the phone. At first it was hard trying to get help. And they said, well, maybe we can, let me see. So then I found a financial company that I also called, and they said, okay, well, you give me $5,000, I can help you save your house. Thinking, that doesn't sound too right. But then something said, well, maybe you should try it and just see. So I talked it over with my aunt. So this was a company that does all the legwork for you. They get all the paperwork, they go through, not knowing I could have done all this myself, devastated and everything, not really knowing what all was going to happen. All I know, I wanted to save my house, and it didn't matter how much it took. So what they did was they got all the information from me, and they were like, they talked to me, and then they would talk to the mortgage company. So they were the ones that help me save the house. But now I know how to do it on my own. So I've had a couple participants that were in that same situation, which I explained to them. All we need to do is just do this, that, and the other thing. And so, but $5,000 later.
Yeah. And so now to discuss your work with participants, in terms of the dispute process for disputing any charges, how easy is that process? What, is like the success rate? Is it complicated? And I'll ask this after, but like without you, do you think someone that doesn't have as much experience in the financial realm as you could navigate this themselves? Like, what do they do without this valuable resource?
Well, basically, it's not that hard, and everything's on YouTube now. So all they basically have to do is put it into YouTube and look it up. But all I do is I have a form letter, and you send it to each one of the credit bureaus, and you explain to them that you're disputing an item and give them the reasons. You send it, you mail it off. They usually respond back to you within 45 days. Most of the cases I've seen, they have taken them off of the credit reports, and that's because I've had legit reasons. Maybe they were incarcerated when those charges were put on there. Maybe they actually weren't their charges. I think I've had maybe out of 50, maybe 2 that weren't removed.
Okay. What are some more complicated aspects of the process of rebuilding your finances after being released or after serving your sentence?
You don't have any money to pay your bills.
Yeah.
So you have all these bills that you have to pay, and you're trying to figure out, what am I going to do? And they've already gone to collections. So what I tell most of the participants at that point is, once you start working, or if they are working, what we're going to do is we're going to call them, see if we can get you on a payment plan, so that you can start making payments. You can bring those balances down, and then your credit will start going up.
And so when you were going to these banks, what were some ways that you were able to convince TE's banking partners to to create a relationship, to allow people to have accounts?
I tell them my story.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they felt sorry for me or if they just wanted to help, but some of them would be like, oh yeah, definitely, we really want to help you. We really want to help TE. I've heard about TE before. Oh yeah, that's a great company. Okay, yeah, good, we'll help you. Other ones were like, well, no, we're not interested. We don't want to deal that. We don't want to do that. We're definitely going to have to do background checks and everything on everyone.
So, do you think that what's keeping banks from accepting people with criminal justice involvement is stereotypes and misconceptions, or do you think it's also there's a genuine risk?
Well, it's probably a little bit of both. The first thing you think negative about a person that's been incarcerated before. And I'm going to be honest, if I hadn't gone through the situation, I would do that too. Before, if you told me anybody was incarcerated before, first thing I think, I don't want to have anything to do with them. But going through that system and going through what I've gone through, and I can relate to other people. I'm sure it might be a risk, but the majority of us that have gone through the system knows how important it is to rebuild yourself, so you're not going to do anything else to mess up anything. So, and that's what I try to explain to the different organizations and the banks, that just give them a second chance. That's all we ask, just a second chance. If they mess up the second chance, then okay, I understand. But just give us a chance. And that's what's so hard. A lot of people don't want to give you a chance once you've been through the system.
Yeah, and I was also hoping to discuss more barriers. So, you mentioned backed up bills and not having a job, but I know that also there's an issue of not even having official identification, so it's more difficult to open a bank account. Right. So what are some other similar barriers like that? Well,
if they don't have, a lot of them do not have, they don't have their social security cards, they don't have their birth certificates, They don't have driver's license or state ID. And most of those participants, especially if they're in the younger group, I refer them to Renee, because certain groups in TE have money for certain different things. So a lot of times they might have a grant that will help them, give them money to go and purchase their ID. Also, there's a North Star on 55th that will give you a voucher. If you write out, if you've just been incarcerated or you're home and you don't have the money, they will give you a voucher to go and get your birth certificate or your ID, so that you will have something to open up an account, because you do have to have an ID at that time to open up an account.
What else do you need that is difficult to obtain?
I think that's basically kind of about it.
Yeah.
You got to have your ID. We have some cases where they don't have driver's license, but they're trying to get their license back. But that I try not to deal with that portion of it.
Yeah.
I usually refer those over to a different department. I basically do just the financial portion. And housing. Housing is another issue that we have, trying to find housing for them. So I try to work with some of the case workers on that, case managers on finding housing.
Could you tell us a story of, a case that you helped work on where, there were really, the circumstances were very grave, and you were able to rebuild their finances? Could you tell us an example?
I had a young man that came to us. His parents had disowned him. He had been in prison twice. He told me, he said, "Miss Gwen," he said, "I want to straighten out my life." He says, "This is my second go round." He says, "I'm almost 40 years old." He says, "I need the help. I don't understand what's going on with me." So I sat down with him and I talked to him, and I told him that I understood his situation. I also helped him. First I told him, I said, "Okay, so this is what actually is it that you want to do?" Because I let them tell me what it is they want to do. He told me, "Well, I want to build my savings. I want to have a decent credit report so that I can go out and buy me a car and a house." He said, "I'm tired of living on the street. Right now I'm living at 2100. So I said, "How long have you been at 2100? He said, "Almost a year." I said, "Okay." He said, "Miss Gwen, every time I go somewhere I have to carry all my stuff. They steal my things from me." He says, "I just don't know what I'm doing." He says, "I'm always wanting to go back to prison." I said, "No, we're not going to do that. This is what we're going to do." I ran his credit report. His credit it wasn't that bad. I think his credit score might have been 500, 540. So I said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to build your credit up first. First, we're going to try to get rid of these 2 items that are on there. They were past due. One was a light bill that he said he never had before. So first thing I did was I disputed that item for him. The other one was a charge that he had back a while ago, so I knew that was going to eventually roll off. So I said, we're not going to worry about that right now. I told him what to do. I told him to get Chime Credit Builder. He did that. I told him to do it for 6 months. I told him to get a secure credit card. Well, he got a job here. We found him a job. He went and got a secure credit card for $300. He charged $15 a month and paid it off. $15 a month and paid it off, and did that for 6 months. His credit score when he started was, I think, 540. Right now, he's looking at a 801, I think, 805. I just gave him some information on purchasing a house. He's in the process of purchasing a house. Since he's been here with me, he's bought a car. It wasn't a brand new car, but it was a car that he did not have to go to JB Byrider or one of those pay by here places. He's doing very good. He met a young lady that's in his corner. He's talking about getting married. They're talking about getting married. But he said, "Miss Gwen, first, I got to get my house." So right now, I think his house will be closing in the next month.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So that made me feel good. He was happy, and to see him advance like that. And he has he does not want to go back. He's not going back. He's straightforward. He's doing everything right now.
What do you think needs to change in order for people to not have to experience, being completely devastated financially and then, the consequences of that in other spheres of your life? What needs to change in our banking system or in our criminal justice system?
Justice system itself is it's just terrible, but I don't want to go into that. But I think that we need to be more aware of what's happening once you're charged with this. Once you're charged with something, you need to know your rights. You need to, especially if you've never been incarcerated before, I've never been in trouble before. For instance, me, I had no idea what to expect or what to do. If I knew now what I knew then, if I knew then what I knew now, I wouldn't have never gone. I would have taken it all away. They scare you. They tell you, well, if you don't take this plea agreement, you're going to get 15, 20 years guaranteed. And most people get scared. So then they just sign that plea and they know they're innocent. Just like me. I should have never married that person and I would have been able to testify and I'd have been scot-free. But now here I am, I'm facing restitution. He's locked back up, for violating probation for doing something so crazy. And I'm stuck with trying to have to pay back restitution for something that I didn't even have a part of. So I think the justice system needs some serious work. I think, and what it needs, I don't know. I can't really say what it actually needs, but I know the justice system is really bad. And to keep people, I think if you know that you're getting ready to go, if you're going to be incarcerated, you should try to put your things in order. As far as checking, make sure, locking your social security cards up, your driver's license, your security card, whatever, so that it can't be out in the open where somebody, and sometimes you can't even trust your own family. I mean, I've seen it happen where some of the participants' mothers or fathers have used their credit while they were gone. So you just really have to be careful.
And would you say there needs to be more education?
Yes,
not
definitely.
just around financial literacy, but just what can happen afterwards and what you need to do to build your life? Yes.
When I was incarcerated, we had a program. I worked in the education department, and we were teaching. We had a list of felon-friendly jobs at that point, which they said they were felon-friendly. I didn't know any better. We would give out to the inmates that were getting ready to leave. And we would tell them, hey, you can go here and get your job. You can do this. I didn't know anything about towards employment or any program like that at the time. They don't teach you that when you're incarcerated. And I think it needs to be more, it needs to be explained more to you once you get out. This is what's going to happen to you. You're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to do that. You think you're going to go back living life like you were before, but it's not like that, and it's not that easy. I feel that it should be explained more to everyone.
Yeah, do you have anything to add? Do you think I should have asked you any other questions? Your words are wonderful.
No, but I also teach financial literacy here, and that's important because I know a lot of us did not have that in school. Well, back when I went to school, we used to have bank days, and you could deposit money. The bank would come, and it would give you an experience of going to the bank, have your little bank book. You could see your little money in the bank and everything. Now they don't do that. So I teach financial literacy, and you'd be surprised what people really don't know about credit and about finances period. So I think that it needs to be more of that needs to be taught.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, do you have any questions you'd like to ask her?
I do, if you have more time, Gwen.
Yes.
Gabby, if, and Barry, if you have time. Just a couple of details first. Could you, Gwen, explain what the checks system is, that perhaps we can just splice into this interview? I think most people don't know what it is.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, not your fault.
Yeah, check systems is a system that if you've had a bank account before and you maybe have fees, you didn't close the bank account, or you bounced a check, or you owe the bank money, they put you into a national system. So when you go in to open up another bank account at any other bank, your name is going to show up in this system. And they're not going to allow you to open up an account unless you pay for those fines. And most of the time, even, because I experienced that, if those fines are paid, they still keep you in that system for a period of time.
Great, that's really helpful. And then, when you, I should have started by saying, I've done a lot of interviewing, I've sat in on Gabby's great interviews. Your story is unbelievable, Gwen, and you're unbelievable. I knew you were the right person to open the door for me.
Thank you.
So, when you walked into those banks to see if they would work with towards employment participants, what level of person did you talk to? Did you walk into a branch? Did you go to the headquarters of Key Bank and meet with the CEO of Key? Roughly what level person did you meet with, and how did you approach them?
I would go to the branches. First off, I would call them and I would tell them I was from Towards Employment and I would like to come in and talk to them about some of our participants opening up accounts there. So they would say, okay, well, you need to talk to the branch manager. So I would make an appointment, I'd go in, I'd sit in, and I would explain our program, who we were. Some of them already knew us. I would try to get most of the banks that were downtown that was close to our location. And I would explain to them our situation. I'd tell them about, the type of people that we work with. And they understood. Some of them understood. Some of them were very helpful. Some of them, oh yes, definitely, we want to partner with you. We want to do this. And then others were like, well, you know what, let me get back to you. And you never hear back from them.
Thanks, that's great. There was recent legislation that I think passed, although it might still be pending in the legislature, that required that people come out of incarceration with ID to address the very problem that you were talking about. Have you encountered that? Are you aware of that legislation?
No, I'm not. Because
Okay,
I'm still seeing people.
I'm supposed to be able to follow this stuff, and so I'm going to check into that.
Okay.
See if it did pass, because I think that's something that could help you do your
Yes,
job.
it is.
If it was the case.
Brian?
Gabby, do you happen to remember that?
Yeah, I believe you're referring to Senate Bill 198, and it passed through the Senate but hasn't started the process in the House yet. So
Oh,
That would explain it, and you can see why I should be replaced by Gabby, because she knows a lot more than I do. Let's see, a couple of other things. Is there anything about having a record or having been incarcerated or even having been charged with a crime that in and of itself affects your credit rating?
Yes, because there's a report that's ran called Nexus Lexus. And that report shows your background, basically. It tells your crime, it tells exactly what you've done and how much time you served. So when certain people, say for instance, banks, or if you want to apply for a car, if they run that report, that's going to show up, and that's going to hinder you.
And is that a fact that is that one of the reasons people don't get bank accounts?
Yes. Certain banks run those reports.
And you know as a fact that you can't get a bank account if you have a record. And what about credit rating, credit agencies? I know it's all kind of a black box and mysterious, but do they do the same thing? Is your credit lowered just because you have a record? I'm not talking about owing anything.
Now that I haven't researched, I'm not sure about that.
That's okay.
Sure.
I was just curious. My last question is the most personal. You don't have to answer. But I have to ask whether it was, so I'll back up. I have no doubt that you like to help people. That's obvious. And it's clear that you have helped a lot of people. But when you began doing this job, was it hard for you to trust the participants because of what your boyfriend did to you?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So that was never in the back of your mind, is this person going to turn out to not? Yeah.
No, I never. You know what? It's funny you mention that because I never even thought about it. I never thought about it.
Erase it from your mind. You're a bigger person than I am. That's obvious. Okay, that's it. Sorry to take up so much time.
That's okay.
I thought you asked some terrific questions.
No, those were great questions. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. What was the specific name of the program that you completed with T? Was it Community and Reentry?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any further questions.
Okay.
But
I actually do have one more question. Do you think that the young man you mentioned who just got a car and is possibly going to get out, do you think he's somebody who would talk to Gabby?
I can check and see.
Gabby, would you be interested in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna ask once the cameras were off if you knew of any like participants that you've helped
That have
you'd like
helped
to
them.
talk to me.
Sure. I think I can come up with a couple.
Okay.
And I will definitely check with him. I know he's a little shy, but I'll check with him and see.
Okay, because we can also. I just did an interview with someone and it was completely anonymous. We just listed her as Jane Doe. So.
Yeah, he probably would want to do it if it was
Yeah.
anonymous.
And
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
That's absolutely fine.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. Thank you, Jabiri. I'm going to sign up.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good to see you guys. And thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay,
Have a
bye-bye.
good
Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Oh my gosh, there are so many tools here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I would really appreciate it, like if you could.
Okay. I'll check and see. Okay.
I'm sorry?
I'm gonna do the cut.
Okay, cool, thanks.